When I was pregnant, my mother-in-law slapped me so hard that I felt dizzy and hit the wall. She demanded I give her my $75,000 worth of family jewelry, threatening divorce if I refused. To my pain, my husband took her side and didn't support me. But I wasn't someone who gave up easily. Determined to stand up for myself and seek justice, I secretly made a plan. I took them to court, and the decision shocked everyone. My name is Isabella. At 33 years old, I had built a life I was proud of as a financial consultant in Austin. I had worked tirelessly to achieve success and save for my dream home, a $2 million house that symbolized my independence and determination. When I met Harry, a 36-year-old project manager, I thought I had found the missing piece in my life. He was charming, kind, and seemed supportive of my ambitions. Our relationship blossomed, and within a year, we were married in a beautiful ceremony. After the wedding, Harry moved into my home, and for a while, everything seemed perfect. But as time passed, cracks began to appear. Harry's mother, Darcy, started visiting more frequently. At first, I welcomed her, thinking she wanted to bond with me. However, her visits soon became a regular intrusion. She scrutinized every aspect of my life, often with judgmental comments. "Isabella, those curtains are far too plain for a house like this," she remarked one afternoon. "You should consider something more elegant. After all, this is Harry's house now too." Her words stung. This was my home, bought with my hard-earned money, but I held my tongue to avoid conflict. I hoped things would improve over time, but I was wrong. Darcy's visits became daily, and she acted as though she owned the place, criticizing my choices and belittling me. "Why do you keep the plates there, Isabella? It's so impractical," she scoffed one day. "You really should think about making this house more functional for Harry." What hurt the most was Harry's lack of support. When I tried to express how uncomfortable Darcy's constant presence made me, he dismissed my feelings. "She's just trying to help," he'd say. "That's how she is. You'll get used to it." I tried to keep the peace, but the situation worsened. Just as I thought things couldn't get more overwhelming, I discovered I was pregnant. The news filled me with mixed emotions, joy and apprehension. While I hoped the baby would bring Harry and me closer, his reaction was indifferent. "That's great," he said with a small smile, lacking real excitement. Darcy's response was even colder. "You'll need to be careful about your diet now," she said bluntly. "We don't want unnecessary weight gain or complications." Her presence made it impossible to enjoy my pregnancy. She treated my home as if it were hers. One evening, I came home from work to find her rearranging the furniture. "Darcy, what are you doing?" I asked, trying to stay calm. "Oh, just making it more comfortable for Harry," she replied dismissively. "You really should think about what's best for the family, Isabella." Her words sent a chill down my spine. This wasn't about opinions anymore, she was trying to take control of my life. Darcy's dominance peaked one evening when I returned from a prenatal appointment. Exhausted and drained, I found her sitting on the couch with a small wooden box in her lap. My heart sank. It was my heirloom jewelry, a collection of gold and gemstone pieces worth $75,000, passed down from my grandmother. "Darcy, what are you doing with that?" I asked, setting my bag down. She looked up, her tone sharp. "I've been thinking about Harry's future. His business is struggling, and selling this jewelry could give him the boost he needs. It's the least you can do for your husband." Her audacity stunned me. "This jewelry isn't just valuable, it's sentimental," I said firmly. "It belonged to my grandmother, and I'm not selling it." Darcy's expression shifted. Her calm facade cracked. "Sentimental? Do you think sentimentality will pay the bills, Isabella? Or secure your baby's future? You're about to become a mother. It's time you start thinking about what's best for this family." Her voice rose, but I stood my ground, determined not to let her manipulate me any longer. I could feel my heart pounding in anger as I clutched my belly protectively, determined to stand my ground. Harry's business isn't my responsibility, Darcy, and this jewelry isn't up for discussion. It's staying right where it belongs, I said firmly. Her eyes narrowed, and her tone turned venomous. You selfish girl. After everything Harry has done for you, you can't even make this one small sacrifice. What kind of wife are you? I'm the kind of wife who refuses to be manipulated, I shot back, my voice trembling but resolute. Then it happened. Darcy shot up from the couch and slapped me across the face. The force sent me staggering back into the wall. Pain radiated through my cheek, and I gasped, instinctively wrapping my arms around my belly as fear coursed through me. My vision blurred for a moment as I steadied myself, my heart racing. You don't deserve this jewelry or this house, Darcy snarled, her voice shaking with rage. This is Harry's home now, and you're just lucky we let you live here. I turned my gaze to Harry, who had been standing silently in the doorway the entire time. His expression was blank, and he made no move to stop his mother or defend me. My voice cracked as I addressed him. Harry, how can you stand there and let this happen? I'm your wife. I'm pregnant with your child. He looked away, his voice low and indifferent. Mom's just trying to help, Isabella. You're the one making things difficult. Those words shattered the last shred of hope I had in him. In that moment, I realized I was truly alone in this house. Neither Harry nor Darcy cared about me, they only cared about what I could give them. With tears streaming down my face, I pushed myself off the wall and walked away, retreating to the bedroom. I locked the door behind me, sank to the floor, and cradled my belly. My heart was breaking, but deep inside, a fire was igniting. They thought they could control me, but they had underestimated me. The next morning, I packed a small bag with essentials and walked out of the house I had once called my sanctuary. Darcy and Harry didn't try to stop me. If anything, they seemed indifferent, as though they believed I would come crawling back. But I wasn't walking away in defeat. I was leaving to fight for myself and my unborn child. I drove straight to my parents' home on the outskirts of San Antonio, the city where I had grown up. As I pulled into their driveway, a wave of relief washed over me. This house, filled with childhood memories and the warmth of unconditional love, felt like the safest place in the world. My mother, a retired nurse, opened the door and immediately noticed the swelling on my cheek. Isabella, what happened? She exclaimed, pulling me into a protective hug. I couldn't hold back the tears any longer. As we sat down in the living room, I told her and my father, a former firefighter, everything, Darcy's constant belittling, Harry's indifference, and finally, the slap that had pushed me to leave. My father's face darkened as I spoke, his fists clenching. She put her hands on you while you're pregnant? That's not just wrong, that's criminal, he said firmly. My mother, always the calm voice of reason, took my hand in hers. You've done the right thing by leaving, Isabella. You need to protect yourself and the baby. What do you want to do next? I wiped my tears, my voice trembling but determined. I want my house back. I want to make sure they can never hurt me or my child again. My father nodded. Then we fight. You're not alone in this, Isabella. We're with you every step of the way. That night, I reached out to my closest friend from college, Rosie, who had become a successful family lawyer. She answered on the first ring. Isabella, it's so good to hear from you. What's going on? As I explained everything, Rosie's tone shifted from friendly to serious. Isabella, I'm so sorry you've been going through this, but you're doing the right thing by standing up for yourself. We'll fight this. The first step is filing for divorce and establishing your legal rights. Do you think I have a strong case? I asked. Absolutely, Rosie replied. The physical assault alone is grounds for serious action, especially given your pregnancy. We'll also document the emotional abuse and their attempts to control your finances. They don't have a leg to stand on. Over the next few days, Rosie and I worked tirelessly to build my case. I started documenting everything: the texts from Darcy, the voicemails, and most importantly, the night she slapped me. My parents also wrote statements about my condition when I arrived at their house, providing additional evidence. Reliving those moments of pain and betrayal felt like reopening old wounds, but I reminded myself why I was doing this: for my safety, my baby's future, and my right to live without fear. One evening, as I sat at the dining table reviewing documents with Rosie, my father placed a steady hand on my shoulder. "You're stronger than you think, Isabella. Don't let them take away what you've built." His words filled me with resolve. I wasn't just fighting to win a court battle, I was fighting to take back my life. The next morning, I accompanied Rosie to her office to officially file for divorce. My hands trembled slightly as I signed the paperwork, but the fear I felt was overshadowed by a sense of determination. This wasn't just about ending my marriage, it was about reclaiming my life and ensuring the safety of my unborn child. Rosie was methodical as she outlined the legal process. "We're going to file for full ownership of the house, full custody of your child, and a restraining order against Darcy. Given the evidence of abuse, I'm confident we have a strong case." I nodded, grateful for her guidance. "Thank you, Rosie. I want to make sure they can't manipulate me or my child ever again." Over the next few weeks, Rosie and I continued to prepare, ready to face the battle ahead with unwavering determination. I worked tirelessly to gather evidence: every text message from Darcy that undermined me, every voicemail where she tried to assert control, and the medical report documenting the bruise on my cheek. All of it was meticulously compiled into a comprehensive case. My parents provided sworn statements about my condition when I arrived at their home, further solidifying the narrative of abuse. Reliving those moments was far from easy. Reading through the texts and replaying the voicemails left me feeling a mix of anger and sadness. How had my life with Harry, which started with so much promise, devolved into this? Yet every piece of evidence reminded me why I was fighting, not just for myself but for my baby's future. One evening, as we prepared for the court hearing, Rosie gave me advice that stayed with me. "Isabella, courtrooms can be intimidating, but remember you have the truth on your side. Don't be afraid to speak your mind and stand your ground." The day of the hearing arrived, and I felt a mix of nerves and determination as I stepped into the courthouse. My parents walked in beside me, their presence a steady source of support. Rosie met us inside, her confidence and calm demeanor reassuring. As we entered the courtroom, my heart skipped a beat. Harry and Darcy were seated across the room. Harry looked tense, his jaw clenched, while Darcy's expression was cold and calculating. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that I wasn't the same person they had tried to manipulate. I was stronger now. The judge, a composed woman in her 50s, entered the courtroom and called the case to order. Rosie stood to deliver the opening argument, her voice clear and commanding. "Your Honor, my client, Isabella, has endured months of emotional and physical abuse at the hands of her husband, Harry, and his mother, Darcy. This abuse escalated to physical violence while she was pregnant, endangering both her and her unborn child. We are requesting full ownership of her home, full custody of her child, and legal consequences for the defendant's actions." Rosie presented our evidence meticulously, walking the judge through the texts, voicemails, and the medical report. She highlighted Darcy's pattern of controlling behavior and Harry's failure to protect me, framing it as a clear case of abuse and neglect. Harry's lawyer stood to respond, attempting to downplay the allegations. "Your Honor, this is a case of miscommunication and family tension. Best intentions were misinterpreted, and there is no substantial proof of malicious intent." As he spoke, I clenched my fists under the table, anger bubbling at the audacity of his words. But I kept my focus, knowing Rosie would counter every argument with facts. When it was my turn to testify, I took a deep breath and walked to the stand. I glanced at my parents, who nodded encouragingly, and began to speak. "Your Honor, this isn't just about a family disagreement, it's about control. From the moment Darcy moved into my home, she systematically tried to undermine me. When I refused to sell my family's heirloom jewelry, she physically assaulted me, causing me to hit the wall. Harry stood by and did nothing. I feared for my safety and the safety of my unborn child, and that's why I left. My voice trembled slightly as I recounted the night Darcy slapped me, but I held my ground. I spoke about the emotional toll of their manipulation and how it left me feeling isolated in my own home. As I finished, the courtroom fell silent, the weight of my words sinking into the room. I glanced at the judge, who was scribbling notes with a furrowed brow. Harry sat stiffly in his chair, avoiding my gaze, while Darcy's face twisted in a mixture of defiance and contempt. Rosie rose again, her voice steady as she addressed the court. Your Honor, the evidence and testimony provided by my client show a clear pattern of emotional abuse, manipulation, and physical violence. This is not just a marital disagreement, it is a deliberate attempt to strip Isabella of her autonomy and place her and her unborn child in harm's way. We urge the court to grant her full ownership of her home, full custody of her child, and protective measures against further interference. The judge nodded slightly, acknowledging Rosie's statement, before motioning for Harry's lawyer to respond. He stood, adjusting his tie before speaking. Your Honor, while we sympathize with Isabella's position, we must emphasize that family tensions are often mischaracterized. Best intentions were never malicious, and the alleged physical altercation has been exaggerated. Additionally, Harry has consistently supported Isabella, contrary to her claims. I couldn't help but scoff silently at his words. Supported me? Harry hadn't lifted a finger to stop his mother from invading my life, let alone defend me when she assaulted me. Rosie stood again, ready to counter. Your Honor, we have a medical report confirming the injuries Isabella sustained the night Darcy assaulted her. Additionally, the text messages and voicemails presented in evidence show a pattern of intimidation and control. These are not the actions of a family simply experiencing tension, they are calculated acts of abuse. The judge looked up, her expression stern. I've reviewed the evidence and heard the testimonies. The actions described here go far beyond typical family disagreements. This behavior, especially the physical assault, is particularly troubling. Let us proceed to closing statements. Rosie delivered a powerful closing statement, emphasizing the danger Darcy posed to both me and my unborn child. Your Honor, this case is about protecting the rights and safety of my client, Isabella, and ensuring that she can raise her child in a secure and supportive environment. We ask the court to take firm action to prevent further harm. Harry's lawyer gave a less compelling statement, reiterating his claim that the situation had been misinterpreted. It was clear to me, and, I hoped, to the judge, that they were grasping at straws. After a brief recess, the judge returned to the bench. The room was silent as she began to speak. After hearing the testimonies and reviewing the evidence, the judge delivered her verdict. She stated clearly that I had been subjected to a pattern of emotional abuse and manipulation by Darcy, with Harry complicit in his inaction. She emphasized that the physical assault, corroborated by medical evidence, was not only unacceptable but also endangered both me and my unborn child. My breath caught as she continued, announcing that I was granted full ownership of the home. Harry would have no claim to the property. Furthermore, I was awarded full custody of my child, and Darcy was ordered to stay away from me under a restraining order. Harry and Darcy were also required to pay financial penalties, including covering my legal expenses. The judge's words lifted a weight off my shoulders. I turned to Rosie, who gave me a reassuring smile, and felt my parents squeeze my hands on either side, their pride and relief evident. As we left the courtroom, I glanced back at Darcy and Harry. Darcy's face was pale with anger, her usual smugness replaced by disbelief. Harry sat motionless, staring blankly ahead, as if stunned by the outcome. Rosie leaned in as we walked out and said, "You did it, Isabella. You stood up for yourself, and the court saw the truth. This is your victory." I nodded, a mix of emotions swirling inside me: relief, empowerment, and a renewed sense of strength. This battle was over, marking the beginning of a new chapter in my life. The days following the court's verdict felt like stepping into a new world. For the first time in months, I no longer felt the weight of Darcy and Harry's control looming over me. Returning to my home, now truly mine, I began reclaiming my space and my life. The first thing I did was rearrange the living room, erasing the remnants of Darcy's influence. The furniture she had insisted on moving stayed exactly where I wanted it. I boxed up everything that reminded me of her or Harry and donated it, feeling a sense of catharsis as I purged the negativity from my life. In the weeks that followed, I prepared for the arrival of my baby. I transformed one of the upstairs bedrooms into a nursery, painting the walls a soft, sunny yellow and filling it with books, toys, and baby supplies. As I worked, I smiled, imagining the life my child and I would build together, one filled with love, safety, and freedom. My parents visited often, bringing home-cooked meals and helping me set up the nursery. Their unwavering support reminded me that I was never truly alone. My father, in particular, took pride in assembling the crib, joking that he was preparing his grandchild for years of safe naps. Rosie remained a steady presence in my life, not just as my lawyer but as a close friend. One evening, as we sat in my newly decorated living room sipping tea, she said, "Isabella, you've come so far. I'm proud of you. You didn't just win a court case, you took your life back." Her words filled me with pride and a sense of accomplishment. I had faced one of the darkest periods of my life and emerged stronger. One quiet evening, as I sat in the nursery's rocking chair, I placed a hand on my growing belly and whispered, "We did it. We're safe now, and I promise you will build a life filled with love and kindness. You'll never have to grow up in fear or under control." The house was peaceful, a kind of peace I hadn't felt in months. It was a fresh start, not just for me but for the family I was about to create. Harry and Darcy's betrayal hadn't broken me. Instead, it had taught me resilience, strength, and the importance of standing up for what I deserved. As the weeks turned into months, I embraced single motherhood with excitement and determination. My home became a haven of warmth and hope for the future. I enrolled in prenatal classes, reconnected with old friends, and focused on rebuilding my career. Every time I walked through my front door, I felt a renewed sense of pride. This house symbolized everything I had fought for: my independence, my freedom, and my right to live without fear. On a crisp spring morning, I welcomed my baby, a beautiful, healthy boy I named Teddy. Holding him in my arms for the first time, I felt a profound surge of love that brought tears to my eyes. He was my entire world, and I promised to give him a life filled with love, safety, and respect. My parents were overjoyed, quickly stepping into their roles as doting grandparents. My father, ever the protector, joked about teaching Teddy to be strong and stand up for himself. My mother spoiled him with handmade blankets and tiny knitted hats, her warmth a constant presence in our lives. With Teddy in my arms, I rediscovered the simple joys of life. Each day brought new adventures: his first smile, his tiny fingers wrapping around mine, the peaceful moments as he slept in my arms. These moments reminded me that the darkness I had endured was behind me and that the future was bright. I continued my work as a financial consultant, finding new clients and rebuilding my career. Balancing work and motherhood wasn't easy, but every challenge felt worth it when I looked at Teddy's face. My life had transformed. It was now filled with hope, love, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. Motherhood wasn't easy, but it was fulfilling in ways I had never imagined. Every small achievement felt like a victory, not just for me but for the life I was building for Teddy. Harry and Darcy were no longer part of my life. The restraining order ensured Darcy couldn't interfere, and Harry made no effort to reach out. Occasionally, mutual acquaintances would mention their struggles, Darcy's bitterness and Harry's inability to move forward without my support, but their lives no longer mattered to me. I had moved on, and I was thriving. One day, while tidying up Teddy's nursery, I stumbled upon the box of heirloom jewelry that had caused so much conflict. Opening it, I gently ran my fingers over the delicate pieces, smiling. These weren't just symbols of my past, they were treasures for Teddy's future. One day, I would share the story of how I fought to protect them and, more importantly, how I fought to protect us. As I sat in the rocking chair, cradling Teddy, I whispered to him, "You'll grow up knowing that no matter how tough life gets, you can always stand up for yourself. We'll build a life together filled with love, respect, and strength." In that moment, I realized my journey wasn't just about reclaiming what was mine. It was about creating a legacy of resilience for my son. The house I had fought so hard to keep had become a home. The life I had rebuilt was now filled with hope and promise. Looking out the window at the setting sun, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. This wasn't just a new chapter, it was an entirely new book, and I couldn't wait to see what the future held. Each day was a reminder of how far I had come and how much strength I had gained. My fight for independence, safety, and a better future for Teddy had transformed me. Together, we were building a life defined by love, courage, and the promise of brighter days ahead.